Let's kick this week off right by taking an advanced look at the Doctor Strange Sorcerer Supreme Omnibus Volume 3 from Marvel Comics. Let's get started. Before getting started, I want to give a huge thank you to David Gabriel and the fine folks at Marvel for sending us an advanced copy of this omnibus. What we're looking at here is the direct market cover. Now, this is where it gets interesting because, like I've mentioned before on the channel, distribution has been kind of a mess lately, but I think they're starting to get things straightened out. The standard edition cover, on the left-hand side, that one is going to be available April 26th and 27th, wherever you get your books, in the book market and direct market. So that one is drawn by Peter Gross. It has a different spine with Strange on it. I wish I had known that because, gosh, I love that character, and that spine looks awesome with the character on it. The one here on the right is drawn by Mark Buckingham, and it is the direct market version, and it has the hipster Doctor Strange on its spine. But that one right there is only available in the direct market, and that will be available in a couple of weeks, so sometime in May. So that's the big difference. It's the same book underneath, it's just the covers and the spines are going to be available at different times. So keep that in mind. The standard edition does come out this week. The direct market comes out in a couple of weeks in May. So let's take a closer look at the direct market cover. I love this picture right here by Mark Buckingham, who becomes the main artist on the book towards the end of this run. And here is what the spine looks like. Doctor Strange, Sorcerer Supreme, the hipster Doctor Strange, and we'll talk a little bit about why that happens in a minute. Volume 3, and then the back of the book featuring a lot of the covers that are going to be in this particular book. So actually, before we go any further, this is what I wanted to do, because something I noticed right away is the change in the logo. Now, this isn't the first time they've done this. We've seen the change in the logo with New Mutants Omnibus Volume 1 and Volume 2. It's because the logo changed within the title. So the Doctor Strange logo, when it was part of the Midnight Suns era, and then eventually the Edge era, the actual logo did change from this to this. This makes it look eerie and creepy. Different times, late 80s, and then we get into the 90s, mid-90s. So I didn't want to show that, but Volume 1, Volume 2, Volume 3, the picture with the window all intact. Underneath the dust jacket, we do have the Peter Gross Standard Edition cover right here. Doctor Strange, Sorcerer Supreme, Volume 3, with that strange picture that you get down there if you have the Standard Edition. And then the back of the book has the direct market cover by Mark Buckingham. So I love when they do this. You get both covers on the actual art on the board. Now, let's crack this book open, talk a little bit about the stories in here, show off that artwork, and yeah, look at the binding. All right, let's get this book open. We have some black end paper right there. This big fight of Baron Mordo and Doctor Strange. I think this is definitely Mark Buckingham. You can tell by the fire-looking spells that Doctor Strange and Mordo are using. And this doesn't happen until much later in the book. Yes, this is something you're going to have to get used to here. All the creators. You have Kurt Busiek, David Quinn, Dan Abnett, Evan Skolnick, Warren Ellis, Todd DeZago, J.M. DeMatteis, Mark Andreyko, Roger Stern, Tom Brevoort, and Mike Kantarovic. Those are just the writers, and we'll talk a little bit about why there's so many, but really, this is a lot of David Quinn's run. You have a bunch of artists, but the main ones really here are Mel Ruby, Peter Gross, and, of course, Mark Buckingham. The other one is P. Craig Russell. That one piqued my interest. Here's your inkers, your letterers, your colorist, the editors at the time, and then your table of contents. So not only do you get the title of the book, but when it was published, like December of 1993, what page it's on, and carrying it on to this page. So kicking it off with Strange Tales featuring The Thing, Doctor Strange, and the Human Torch. This is the one that's written by Kurt Busiek. This is the one that is painted by Ricardo Villagran, and Richard Starkins has the letterers here. But this takes us back to those days of the Strange Tales, where Doctor Strange first appeared and shared a magazine with the Human Torch. So we'll talk a little bit about that here in a second. But this does collect Strange Tales number 1. and this was printed in 1994. It collects Doctor Strange Sorcerer Supreme 60 through 90, Annual number 4, Midnight Suns Unlimited number 6. What is it that disturbs you, Steven? That's the one shot by P. Craig Russell and Mark Andreyko. Untold Tales of Spider-Man, Strange Encounter, which was collected in the Untold Tales of Spider-Man Omnibus previously, and then the Ashcan edition from 1995. Do they still make those? Do they still make Ashcans? It's pretty interesting. Okay, so this particular story that it kicks it off with is just a one-off story featuring the Thing, the Human Torch, and Stephen Strange. It's also the return of Wyatt Wingfoot, and they're all fighting a bunch of creatures. These classic creatures from the 60s era, the Kirby monsters type of creatures that show up throughout this book. And it's all painted, like I mentioned, but let's get going to Doctor Strange, because this is an interesting collection at the very beginning. It's kind of like you're thrown into an ongoing story, but you're only getting parts of it. So this is part of the Siege of Darkness crossover, which crossed over with Ghost Rider and Morbius, Midnight Suns, and it's a little bit confusing because you're just thrown into the middle of something. You know that Lilith is raising demons, like she always does, and she's here on Earth trying to take it over. So Doctor Strange has to team up with these characters here. However, they don't collect any of the other series, with the exception of the Marvel Comics Presents, the Midnight Suns Unlimited. I love the fact that they did collect like the letter pages and telling you where to read Doctor Strange. Oh, Darkhold is the other comic too. But you get this in here. You get the Marvel Comics Presents, which is just a few pages, and then you jump back to Doctor Strange. But in between the chapters is where, like, this is Siege of Darkness number 13 with Strange on the cover. So I do have to talk about that a little bit, because something big happens through here that is a little bit confusing, especially, like I said, in the middle of a crossover. And that is the appearance of this character of Strange. Now, it tells you, just recaps exactly what happened in Siege of Darkness, parts 16 and 17, and then you can jump back to the story of Doctor Strange, where he's fighting Doom. But it's not really Doctor Strange because it's Strange. And what you may be noticing right away are these weird use of colors. All right, this is what is known as the computer separation experimental phase of colors for not just Marvel, but also DC, especially Image. Image is the ones that really got out there with like Steve Oliff and all the computer generated colors that they were putting out. I can think of like pages like Supreme, for example. I remember Supreme being one that had these type of colors. Now, these type of colors, when I was a kid, at least to me, it kind of blew me away. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is flawless. Like, the colors aren't leaking over. This is really nice. It's like they're separated by the lines, like true colors are supposed to be. And I remember thinking, this is the way of the future. And now, in hindsight, I kind of miss like people like Joe Rosa's, like their colors, their hand-painted colors, because it's so different when doing computer colors. But that's why you're going to notice, like, it really stands out. It almost looks amateurish, and I'm not an artist myself, and I hate making statements like that. But compared to the evolution of where it went, it really stands out, and it looks so different. So yes, Strange does appear, but why? All right, during the Siege of Darkness storyline, Doctor Strange decided to go into this dark universe. And we also have this character right here, which we're going to talk about right now. Love this cover, by the way. This is the character of Vincent Stevens. So we have Doctor Strange, Vincent Stevens. So while Doctor Strange is trying to pretty much plan an attack because he got rid of all of the... this is a little bit of a spoiler. How do I put this? Okay, Doctor Strange... Stephen Strange, the character that you've known since issue number 1, the character that has been in the movies, has decided to put himself into this almost like a pocket dimension where he is training in a different way of magic because he's kind of gotten rid of the Vishanti stuff. But the Earth still needs a Sorcerer Supreme. And we were introduced to this villain earlier on named Salome. And she is now the Sorcerer Supreme, but she is also a villain. So Doctor Strange, Stephen Strange, while he's in this pocket universe, decides to split sort of like his personality into three. You have Strange, that will fight all of these magical beings while on Earth, and then you have Vincent Stevens. And Vincent Stevens is like the rich character that is building like techno magic in the Sanctorum. That's pretty much what it is. That's why you're going to have like three different characters playing the same kind of role. Thought that was a pretty unique thing, honestly. And I assume, this is Salome, by the way. I assume, not Salami. I assume that it's a biblical name. The reason they went with the name Vincent is because he was originally supposed to be based on Vincent Price, the way that Stephen Strange looked. That's just me assuming. I don't know. So, while Stephen, I'll just call him Stephen, is actually in that pocket dark dimension, we have Strange fighting all these different characters, but he starts kind of losing it, because magic is kind of like dwindling down a little bit. So both Strange and Vincent kind of want to become independent of Stephen, because they know their existence is about to expire if Stephen were to return. So they kind of go bad a little bit. And Doctor Strange kind of senses this and decides to make a return. However, the return isn't easy. Here's some Kyle Holtz artwork. All of this, by the way, written by David Quinn. That's what I meant at the beginning. Like, a lot of this is written by David Quinn. We have him fighting now Salome and Strange, and then having to be at odds with Vincent. But in the end is where we get... the annual also features what is going on with Clea, as she's fighting other Dark Dimension beings. What's going on with the Midnight Suns. We got a story of Blade by Gene Colan. But yes, at the end of the day, when Doctor Strange finally arrives, my goodness, it's a little bit, this is him in that dark dimension. When he finally arrives, at the end of the Last Rite story arc here, so the final fight with Salome, Doctor Strange gets a new body. But that's not enough, because now Doctor Strange has a new look. So instead of having this cloak, he now has a coat, and he's got these awesome hipster sunglasses, and he's got this badass hairdo that is all slicked back. He looks a lot younger. That's all actually explained here, and he's like that for a little bit this issue right here. But this issue does feature the return of this character right here. This, of course, being Modred, which played a big role in the big origin of Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch. Now, Stephen doesn't remain this way, because it feels like they were trying out different things. By now, he's kind of separating, or the writers are separating themselves from that part of the Midnight Suns label that they had. So at one time, Strange was part of the Midnight Suns, kind of like X-Men. X-Men had a logo that if you read X-Men, you had to go and read X-Factor, you had to read X-Force, you had to read Cable in order to feel like you're reading everything. Well, that's the way that Marvel decided to make Doctor Strange back then, because the sales had dropped, and they wanted, this little label right there. So after that, they decided to step further and further away. So all these stories, they get him further and further away. This is when he's confused for a homeless guy. It's not the only time he's confused for a homeless guy. We'll talk about that here in a second. Further and further away from Ghost Rider and those characters to kind of become his own thing again, to kind of be restored as the Sorcerer Supreme. And that's when the Marvel Edge was created. So Marvel Edge felt like the Vertigo universe. So this is Doctor Strange. This is all explained here. This is a story by Warren Ellis. So Warren Ellis is hired to come in and kind of restore Stephen Strange in a way. But he only stays like one issue, and then the rest of the issues he plots and he co-scripts. Todd DeZago and I believe Evan Skolnick are the ones that script those issues. It's only like for 4 issues. But we get the cool-looking Stephen Strange back. This is an interesting story about pollution and that, and magic keeping him. So now we have Stephen Strange back with the goatee. He still has a coat, so looking all slick. And this becomes more of a, like I said, like a Vertigo type of story. And you have Mark Buckingham now stepping in as artist. From the early pages here of Mel Ruby to Peter Gross, and now we have well, that's a pinup right there. Mark Buckingham stepping in as art. Mary Severin actually supplying some of the art there too, in between Mark Buckingham and Peter Gross. So a lot of the breakdowns. Now, steps in J.M. DeMatteis. And I actually love his run. It's a run of Doctor Strange that I hardly hear anyone talk about. I think he brings it back home. As a matter of fact, there is a homecoming. Yes, this issue right here, by now, like I said, it's the Marvel Edge. This is the homecoming issue that I really enjoy. This is part 3 of Homecoming, where Stephen just decides to go back home, to the home that he was raised in. And it's like he's letting go of the ghosts of the past that have been haunting him. He feels like he betrayed his mom and dad and his sister. Like, this was a really powerful issue. He runs into a childhood friend that is now living in his old home. And on top of that, he gets bad news towards the ends that is affecting his health. Like, this is what I meant by J.M. DeMatteis bringing it back home. Unfortunately, the series was canceled with issue 90. He still gets to wrap up his story with Baron Mordo and the whole Chthon thing. But I feel like this is a very underrated era of Doctor Strange. While, most people are like, yeah, he's caught up in these crossovers. There's this whole Strange thing happening where, literally like Strange, the character. And then who the heck is Vincent Stevens? Seems like they didn't know what to do with the character. And it is true when you're reading these again. Seems like everybody wanted to try something new after David Quinn left, but it finally really worked with this particular run of J.M. DeMatteis and Mark Buckingham. And yeah, I hate to compare it, but it really did feel like a Vertigo title. And then we get this right here, Mark Andreyko and P. Craig Russell. Holy crap. Like 25 years in the making. This was published, I believe, in 1996. It's a 64-page issue that P. Craig Russell has been dreaming up since the 70s. They used it in one of the annuals, part of it, but he redrew most of it, and he actually got to tell the story that he's been wanting to tell since the 70s. So I thought that was really cool that they talked into, I guess it was Bob Harris they talked into letting him have a one-shot. We get the one-shot, speaking of one-shots, of the Untold Tales of Spider-Man. This, again, being collected in the pages of the Omnibus. There's the tribute to Steve Ditko's wild and wacky artwork there. And then we get this, let's see, this is a Untold Tales of Spider-Man cover art, and this is the Ashcan edition. So yeah, they don't do, I don't know, I haven't seen an Ashcan in a long time. I remember they were big, early on, of course, and then they brought them back in the 90s, during the Image era. I remember Gen X had one. Any new series, they would reintroduce the characters through these black and white little, taking pretty much pictures from what's happened previously and catch you up to speed to what the characters have been doing. Or introduce you to new characters, like in Generation X. There are interviews here with David Quinn, but not just him, but also Mel Ruby, the artist on Doctor Strange. This right here. More interviews with David Quinn, the doctor's notes by the editor at the time, Evan Skolnick, who actually became, like I said, a scripter later on. Love that picture right there. That is awesome. I assume that's Kyle Holtz, if I'm not mistaken, just looking at the shadows. Here is the Marvel Edge house ad. So, I forgot that Hulk was part of the Edge universe. I remember that Punisher and Daredevil was. And honestly, I had forgotten that Ghost Rider was, because he went through changes too. I think that's where, was it Pop Man redesigned the costume? They canceled the Vengeance book, and I think eventually Mark Buckingham went over to Ghost Rider. Some original artwork. Now, the book has 1,088 pages. You can't have a 90s collection without the Marvel swimsuit pinups here. I didn't know Clea had a little butt stamp there. And this is a reimagining of Doctor Strange by Dennis Calero. What is it that disturbs you, Stephen? And then the final arts by P. Craig Russell here. Now, as far as the binding, this one is printed at the iMac printer. It is sewn binding. This is what the eye looks like. The first 2 volumes, I think those were the Leo printer in China. But you're not going to notice much gutter loss towards the very beginning because of the pages that look like this. There are some spread pages, and it's just got minimal gutter loss. on a lot. So I'm interested, yeah, kind of like this right here. I'm interested to see who's picking up this particular volume because, you know, who's wrapping up the Sorcerer Supreme era, or if Doctor Strange is your favorite character. But that, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing this book, don't forget to check out our sponsor, cheapgraphicnovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content and page count and build of this omnibus. Let me know in the comments down below if you've picked up volumes 1 and 2 of Sorcerer Supreme, what you think about the series overall, if you've been reading it, how it ended, did it stick to its landing, or what you thought of all the stories that make up this particular omnibus. If you've not read it, let me know that too in the comments down below. If you have any more questions, leave those questions in the comment section. This was the Uncanny Omar. I want to take this time to thank our patrons for making videos like this possible. Could not be doing this without you all. And everyone out there, stay healthy and safe. Much love.